Taking inspiration from the grand tradition of early tabletop role-playing games, the Final Fantasy series has become known for its own spin on character classes, called jobs. Since the first Final Fantasy, jobs have been a core part of the franchise, and entries like Final Fantasy 3 and 5 really brought them to the forefront. But with Final Fantasy Tactics, the concept was taken to the next level, featuring 20 generic jobs as well as 9 special jobs unique to specific characters. Final Fantasy Tactics allows players to mix and match a primary job with a secondary job command, as well as equip learned reaction, support and movement abilities from any job, making for a truly staggering number of combinations. But each job has strengths and weaknesses, and with so many options available, we thought it would make sense to take a deep dive into the jobs of Final Fantasy Tactics, so that you can make the most of your units on the battlefield. So let's jump straight in with the Squire. As one of the 2 foundational jobs, Squire serves as a starting point for any unit beginning their journey in the physical job classes, and as such, the job has no prerequisites available to all units, save for special characters who had their own unique jobs instead. A well-rounded combatant, the Squire relies on its fundamentals job command to attack the enemy, as well as heal and buff itself. In terms of equipment, Squires have access to a decent array of weapons, such as knives, swords, axes and flails, and they can wear hats and clothes for armour. The Squire stats are decently middle of the road, both in terms of growth rates and job multipliers. And while its usefulness can wane as new jobs become available, it does feature some key support abilities that, when learned, can benefit any unit. Chief amongst these abilities is the JP Boost support ability, which boosts earned JP by 50%. This is an essential skill as it can be applied to other jobs, therefore making the learning of other skills much quicker. Others, such as its Move +1 ability, provide a lot of early utility, giving units with worse movement, like knights, better overall mobility on the battlefield. Though some of the Squire's other fundamental skills are interesting, such as Stone, which not only deals damage, but can even clear certain status effects such as Charm, Sleep and Confuse, or the reaction ability Counter Tackle, which has the chance to push the attacking unit back a tile. Most units therefore benefit from learning the bare necessary abilities and then moving on to the more powerful ones. But Ramza's version of the role is a bit different. Unlike regular Squires, Ramza has access to the Metal job command, and though it does not feature better stats overall than the standard Squire, it evolves as the story progresses into the Knight Gallant job, which then grants Ramza access to a wider range of equipment such as Knight Swords. In addition, the abilities Ramza has access to can be game-breaking in some instances. Abilities like Steal and Shout not only increase the bravery of your units in battle, but can also permanently increase it outside of battle, albeit to a lesser degree. Going one step further is Tailwind, an ability which increases a unit's speed stat, and when stacked, it can enable Ramza or any ally to be able to take multiple turns in a row. Finally, starting in Chapter 4 of the main scenario, Ramza is able to gain access to Ultima under specific conditions, and this makes Squire a legitimate late-game job for Ramza. The other fundamental job, Chemist, serves as a starting point for magic jobs, and also has no prerequisites should a unit wish to learn its ways. Essential as an early game medic and support unit, Chemist can use both its items job command and its throw items innate ability to dole out potions and status curing salves from near and far. The Chemist has limited options when it comes to equipment, only able to use hats and clothes for armour, but on the offensive side they can use knives and even guns, the latter of which is perfect for staying out of the fray to provide support from safety. Chemist stats, both in terms of growth rates and job multipliers, lag behind the Squire, but for the most part that's a tolerable compromise, as the key role of Chemists is not fighting, but providing ways to reliably heal and revive teammates with items. Outside of using items though, Chemists have a few other tricks up their sleeves, such as the reaction ability Auto Potion, useful for mitigating damage by using potions in response to an attack, something which can be extremely useful in key fights such as the battle against Vigraf at Riovanna's castle. But there's also the Treasure Hunter movement ability, which enables the unit to find hidden treasure on the battlefield just by wandering around, potentially opening up powerful equipment options for the party. Despite these useful abilities, the potential for the Chemist as a late-game primary job can be a bit limited, but using items as a secondary job command can be an excellent option, as it provides perfect synergy with the White Mage, but can also be coupled with Ninja to make them even more deadly from range. Strong, stalwart attackers and defenders, Knights are one of the first physical jobs to be unlocked, only requiring a Squire to be leveled up a few levels. On the battlefield, Knights use their impressive strength to overwhelm and pacify their opponents through the use of their Rend job command, which offers them some utility over just outright attacking. When it comes to equipment, Knights specialise in swords and knight swords, and are able to equip helms and armour, while also able to go lighter, making use of robes as well. As expected, Knights have great physical stats for a melee unit, with both their growth rates and job multipliers favouring HP and physical attack stats, but they lag behind in range and movement, meaning proper placement is key to their success. The strength of jobs is breaking their enemies down, using abilities such as Rend Weapon or Rend MP, which, when successful, not only deal damage but severely hamper a target's ability to fight back, by either destroying their equipment or reducing their stats significantly. The success rates of these abilities can sometimes be a bit frustrating, but when they work, they have the potential to instantly turn the tides of a battle. Breaking things is not the only things Knights can do though, and some of their passive abilities, such as the support ability Equip Heavy Armor or the reaction ability Parry, provide additional defensive utility that can be expanded to other jobs. Knights are therefore a solid choice during the game's main scenario, and they compare well with the support ability Dual Wield from the Ninja job, which allows Knights to passively increase their damage dealing potential. But really, any secondary job that complements the Knight's solid physical foundations can turn it into a veritable threat. Masters of the Bow, the Archer stands as one of the few dedicated ranged attacking options in the game, and it has the same prerequisites as Knight, requiring the Squire to be leveled up a few levels. Using their keen eyes and patience as a weapon, the Archer's main job command, Aim, lets them obliterate enemies from afar, all while keeping them away from retaliation. When it comes to weapons, it's therefore obvious that the Archer's bread and butter is a collection of bows and crossbows, but they're also able to equip shields for defense just in case, in addition to hats and clothes. While Archers feature some advantages in their damage dealing capabilities in both stat growth rates and job multipliers, overall their main utility comes from range, something which is counterbalanced by their relative fragility when compared to other physical units. Using Aim, Archers are able to strike a chosen tile with varying degrees of power, at the cost of longer charge time. It makes Aim a bit of a gamble, as its damage dealing potential is very high, but as Aim doesn't track its target, it therefore requires very careful planning in order to pull it off, something that's made easier with the help of abilities from other jobs such as Time Mage's Stop, or through inflicting other statuses such as Sleep or Mobilize. Luckily, Archers have a handful of other useful learnable abilities, such as Concentrate, which makes physical attacks, both ranged and melee, hit their targets more often by bypassing a unit's evasion, or the reaction ability Archer's Bane, which allows them to dodge arrows and bolt attacks. Needless to say, Archers are best when used from a distance, but height can also be a huge advantage, and as they can strike from behind barriers, as their arrows travel in arcs towards the target, they can be very useful assets on the battlefield if they're used correctly. White Mages are the game's dedicated magical healers, requiring Chemist to be leveled up a few levels. They are the perfect example of a support role, using their white magic in order to provide the party with consistent healing, reviving and buffs, all from a safe distance. For equipment, White Mages use staves as weapons, which sometimes have the advantage of bestowing additional effects, while relying on hats, clothes and robes for defense. White Mages feature great MP pools, magic attack and speed stats in terms of job multipliers, but the growth rates offered are more of a mixed bag, coming across as average in almost every department. The key to using White Mages successfully comes from learning as many of the key white magic spells as possible, something that's quite obvious, but this turns them into a veritable mobile hospital. But it's important to be careful, as white magic spells are area of effect, and you can therefore run the risk of accidentally healing and buffing enemy units. In addition, white mage spells require both charge time and MP, which means that time and MP management have to be taken into account to get the most out of the job. Still, spells like Reis and Cure are essential alongside their more powerful versions, and spells like Asuna are also very useful. The true secret weapon is Holy. This pairs well with the Arithmetician's Arithmetics job command, allowing the spell to be cast instantly, striking a multitude of targets at once and multiplying the damage dealing potential of the attack dramatically. There is the opposite of white mages are black mages as the main offensive magic wielding job. And like white mages, they need Chemist to be leveled up a few levels to unlock. They are also not suited to the front lines, instead better off launching their attacks from a distance using their black magic. Because of this, black mages rely on rods as their main weapons, with lighter armour such as hats, clothes and robes there for defence. Black mages though do sport better magic stats all round when compared to white mages, both in terms of growth rates and job multipliers, but this is offset by worse physical aptitude, which is befitting as black mages are there to do one thing: destroy the enemy through the use of powerful black magic before they themselves are struck down. Again, like the white mage, many of the black mage's skills are area of effect, which means they can occasionally run the risk of friendly fire. They also share the same issues of charge time and MP management. That being said, black mages are capable of wreaking havoc from afar, and access to a myriad of elemental spells allows them to effectively zero in on a target's weakness. As such, most of the black mage's spells are a must to learn. They also feature a couple of support abilities worth knowing too, such as the reaction ability Magic Counter, which allows them to send magic flying back at opposition casters, and the support ability Arcane Strength, which increases a unit's magic attack stat to deal even more damage from spells. In one final similarity to white mages, black mages and their abilities are best when bolstered with the Arithmetician's Arithmetic job command. But as one of the most magically adept jobs in the whole game, black mages can realistically remain a primary job through until the game's final hours. A master of close quarters combat, monks are a well-rounded and often self-sufficient physical unit, capable of dealing some serious bare-handed damage via its innate ability, Brawler. And to unlock it, all you need to do is level up the Knight job. Hardy and strong, monks excel deep in enemy territory, where their martial arts job command allows them to zone in and overwhelm threats, while also keeping themselves fighting fit. And they can do this with minimal equipment, as their fists are their weapons, but they can also equip clothes as armour. Like knights, monk stats favour physicality in terms of both growth rates and job multipliers, boasting great physical attack and HP, but they also featured better speed, evasion, and some increased vertical mobility, alongside some decent magic stats to boot. This gives them a solid foundation which they can take advantage of via their martial arts abilities. On the offensive side, abilities like Aura Blast and Shockwave allow monks to attack from afar, while Cyclone is capable of dealing damage to all units in the immediate vicinity. Defensively, one of the monk's more notable abilities is the reaction ability Counter, which allows them to respond to attacks in kind, dealing retaliatory damage. Outside of this, monks are capable of healing themselves through the use of chakra, and can even revive allies. Additionally, the monk's Brawler support ability can be learnt and applied to other jobs, bestowing its unarmed attacking bonus to any unit and lending to some potentially interesting combinations. But monk is also a great choice as a primary job, and they can become very powerful very easily. Quick and mobile, thieves are experts at lifting valuables from their targets, and as such, their skill set is essential to get some of the best gear in the game. But in order to become one, a unit first has to level up the archer job. Thieves rely on knives for weapons, allowing them to deliver decent damage, but it's not one of the stronger melee classes, and due to its armor choices being limited to hats and clothes, thieves are relatively fragile as well. However, their speciality is not dealing damage or taking damage. The thief's main role is being fast, and it therefore makes sense they have excellent movement, speed and evasion stats, amongst the best in the game in terms of both growth rates and job multipliers. Through the steal command, thieves are capable of stealing not only a target's skill, but also any piece of equipped gear an enemy has, provided the correct steal ability has been learnt. But this has the potential to go even further, as abilities like Steel Heart can even inflict charm on an enemy, and you can also use Steel EXP to level up faster. Steel is therefore an essential secondary job command to have in the party, even if having a dedicated thief isn't in the cards. When paired with some key thief reaction abilities such as Sticky Fingers and Gill Snapper, which allow a unit to both catch thrown items and steal gil when attacking respectively, the thief's skill set can go a long way in helping the party. Mystic is a magical job centered around incapacitating an opponent through the use of strange magic, but access requires leveling up the White Mage. Using its job command, Mystic Art, Mystics use the power of the Cosmos to hinder enemies through the use of status effects, but they can also dispel beneficial buffs that the enemies have on them. Unlike other magical jobs, Mystics do have some limited utility as a melee fighter, in part due to their ability to use polearms, something that allows them to attack from a couple of tiles away while dodging reaction abilities. But they can also equip magic staples such as rods, staves and books, alongside hats, clothes and robes for defense. The magic focus of Mystic is reflected in their stats, sporting good MP and magic attack growth rates and job multipliers, but generally, Mystics are underwhelming physically. Through the use of their Mystic Art, Mystic can cause chaos with the likes of Blind, Confusion, Silence and Petrify, but they also have access to abilities like Invigorate, which can drain an enemy's HP, or Harmony, which can dispel buffs. All of the Mystics' Mystic Arts come at a steep MP cost though, and have less than a reliable success rate, which means getting the most out of a Mystic as a primary job can be tough, but not impossible. Something made easier by its movement ability, Monofont, which allows them to recover 10% of their MP when moving around. Mystic Arts can also function as a good secondary job command for other jobs like Black Mage or Time Mage, where its abilities add a ton of utility while benefiting from those jobs' better stats, from the better stats of those jobs. Masters of Space and Time, Time Mages are adept in manipulating the forces of the universe to both aid the party and deal damage, with the prerequisite being that Black Mage has to be leveled up. Controlling the flow of battle is key to success in tactics is more tougher fights, and using time magic is the primary way to bestow key benefits such as haste and reflect on the party. But to make use of these powerful abilities, time mages have to be kept safe, as they are very much not intended for physical encounters. They can only equip staves as weapons, and hats, clothes and robes as defensive options. To work in with this, time mages have similar stat growth rates and job multipliers to mystics, but are edged out in a few key areas such as MP and magic attack. And similar to other magical jobs, time mages have very poor physical stats. However, just because they excel in a supporting role doesn't mean that time mages can't do some serious damage of their own if required. Most of their abilities focus on manipulating time, using spells such as haste and slow to speed up or slow down targets respectively. But time mages can also wreak havoc by halting time altogether by using stop and immobilize, both of which can stop targets from either receiving turns or moving altogether. What's more, time mages are also capable of dealing proportional damage via gravity and gravigar, the latter of which lowers an enemy's health by 50%, but they can also call upon the mighty meteor spell to smite their enemies. Time mages also have great utility in their reaction, support and movement abilities, such as Critical Quick, which allows a unit to take an immediate turn when gravely wounded, Swiftness, which shortens the charge time of abilities, and Teleport, which allows a unit to warp directly to another tile, greatly increasing their movement capabilities in some cases. It means time mages have some utility as a primary job and are a solid choice. They really excel as a secondary job command for the likes of the Black Mage. Geomancers have the power to rend the very earth itself as a weapon, but to become one requires leveling up the monk. Though not really considered a magical job, Geomancers draw upon the mystical power of the earth to deliver elemental attacks to enemies, but what they do is dependent on the type of terrain the Geomancer happens to be standing on. Able to equip axes and swords, Geomancers are quite handy with melee combat, but although they can also use shields, they can only equip lighter armor. In terms of stats, the Geomancers are quite strange. They're well rounded when it comes to growth rates and job multipliers, and while they're not the best at anything, they're not the worst either. This makes them a bit of a Swiss Army knife in combat scenarios, a fact emphasized by those Geomancy abilities. Geomancers are dependent on what they're standing on, but their damage calculation takes into account both physical and magical attack stats. Its more notable abilities include the likes of Torrent and Quicksand, which are some of the only ways to deal water elemental damage, and Magma Surge, which causes fire damage and can also KO a unit instantly. However, that specific ability requires a Geomancer to be stationed on either lava or machinery terrain tile. Outside of Geomancy, Geomancers also have access to movement abilities such as Ignore Terrain and Lava Walking, and can use the reaction ability Nature's Wrath, which counters enemy attacks with Geomancy under certain conditions. Geomancers can also learn the support ability Attack Boost, which provides a nice bump in damage for physical jobs, and this gives Geomancers a decent use case as a primary job, but a very solid case as a secondary job command, helping them to provide added versatility for other physical jobs like Samurai. Dragoons are an iconic Final Fantasy staple job and a fearsome force on the battlefield, unlocked by leveling up the Thief job. Using their jump command, Dragoons ascend high into the sky and pummel their enemies from above, ignoring all heights and covering great distances with the right JP investment. For weapons, Dragoons use their signature polearms, and their defense can utilize shields, helmets, and various types of armor, making them a sturdy, hard-hitting unit. Its stats, in terms of growth rates and multipliers, are heavily focused on HP and physical attack, although not the highest in the game, are respectable. But Dragoons also have some decent evasion and some very good vertical movement. Its magic stats are some of the worst though, which underlines its role as a bit of a one-trick pony, albeit a very powerful one. The Dragoon's job command functions similarly to the Archer's aim command, in that it takes time to actually hit its target tile and doesn't track the enemy. This can mean there is a chance of missing the target, so planning is incredibly important. Success rates are also quite low, and it's why nearly all the Dragoon's learnable abilities are focused on improving the jump attack, essentially increasing the vertical and horizontal range of jump so that Dragoons can hit things further away. Outside of jumping, Dragoons can learn the ability Dragonheart, which casts Re-Raise when attacked, Ignore Elevation, a movement ability which allows units to move vertically with no punishment, and the support ability Equip Polearms, which allows a unit to equip polearms no matter their job. Increasingly, Dragoon is one of the best units to make use of the Samurai's double hand support ability, as it increases the damage of the Dragoon's already two-handed polearms without sacrificing their offhand, a combination which turns their basic attacks into deadly strikes when equipped with legendary weapons like the Gungnir. Whereas other jobs use magic or weapons to fight, the Orator relies on a different skill set, using the power of their voice to gain the upper hand, and to become one, players need to level up Mystic. The Orator's job command, Speechcraft, sees them use their powers of persuasion to apply buffs and debuffs, as well as convincing enemy units to hand over money and even switch teams, but something which can also be done to monsters through their innate ability, Beast Tongue. Though the Orator can equip guns and knives, they're not really intended for close quarters combat and can only equip light armor as a result. When looking at stats, even though Orators don't really use magic, the magic stat determines the success of Speechcraft abilities. But in this regard, Orators are average to below average across the board in every possible way, whether that be growth rates or job multipliers, meaning that, like the Dragoon, it's a very singularly focused job. Speechcraft is also a niche job command, which is perhaps best used to permanently raise or lower the bravery and faith stats of units through Praise, Intimidate, Preach, and Enlighten. These abilities are an essential part of maximizing a physical unit's resistance to magic, raising the magical abilities of a mage, or increasing the unit's chance to respond to reaction abilities. But they can also lower the bravery of a unit to better make use of the Treasure Hunter movement ability. Though these are main reasons to use Speechcraft, Orators can convince enemy units to switch teams through their Entice ability, and the support ability, Equip Guns, can also be very, very useful. Through the use of powerful otherworldly beings known as Espers, summoners are able to deal damage, heal allies, and bestow buffs and debuffs alike, but only after Time Mage has been leveled up sufficiently. Through their summon job command, summoners, unlike other magical jobs, have the advantage of only applying damage and debuffs to enemies and only applying healing and buffs to allies irrespective of the targeting. There's no chance of friendly fire here or benefiting an enemy. And this makes them incredibly useful, assuming you can keep them safe. They are ill-suited for close-quarter combat, which is reinforced by terrible speed and physical attack stats, but summoners have stellar MP and magic stats both in terms of growth rates and job multipliers. Summoning can require long charge times to pull off, but the payoff can be huge. Summons like Ramu, Ifrit and Shiva deal elemental damage to all enemies, striking key elemental weaknesses. And big ticket summons like Bahamut have the ability to flip a battle's fortunes instantly with their huge damage output. But this also makes summoners a dangerous foe. But should your own summoner be hit by a rival summon, then they also have the chance to learn that summon themselves. In fact, that's the only way to learn the game's secret summon, Zodiark. Due to their application, summoners are a very viable option throughout the entirety of the game due to their high magic stats and powerful abilities, but summon is also a great secondary job when equipped on a black mage, a combination made all the better when coupled with the summoner's learnable half MP support ability, which can seriously enhance any spellcaster. Samurai is a versatile job capable of dealing both physical and magical damage to its foes. And as a more advanced job, becoming one requires a unit to level up Knight, Monk, and Dragoon. Using its Iaido command, samurais have their skill set dictated by which katana are in their possession at any given time. These same katanas then double up as a samurai's main melee weapon, and for defense, they can use helms, armor, and robes, making samurai the picture of a warrior who excels deep in the fray. Its stats in terms of growth rates and job multipliers are similar to the knights by way of physical attack, but they have slightly worse HP. But to counterbalance this, samurai excel with their high evasion, letting them avoid damage more often, and giving them additional opportunities to make use of their Iaido abilities. Doing so sees a samurai draw out the spirits of the katana they use to not only deal magical damage and potentially debuff enemies, but also increase their own combat capabilities. For example, abilities like Muramasa inflict solid damage while causing the Confuse and Doom status effects, while Masamune allows a user to buff themselves with both regen and haste. But by using these abilities, the samurai also takes a bit of a chance, because Iaido has the potential to break whichever katana it uses. While not a sure thing, it means that using Iaido comes with some inherent risk, which may or may not be worth it depending on the situation. Still, despite all this, due to its high magic damage, Iaido is a good secondary job for magical jobs like the Black Mage, and Samurai is also a great primary job in itself, supported by access to the powerful double hand support ability, which enhances the strength of its melee strikes. Ninja, like the Dragoon, is another physical job that excels at what it does best, but becoming one is no easy task as it requires the leveling up of Archer, Thief, and Geomancer. Using its throw job command, ninjas are capable of launching a myriad of weapons at their enemies, turning outdated acquisitions into projectiles capable of dealing some serious damage. Using regular weapons such as knives, ninja blades, and flails, ninjas are capable of potent melee strikes, while using light armor like hats and clothes for defense. The stats of ninja heavily reinforce the playstyle. As such, they have amazing speed and high physical attack in terms of both growth rates and job multipliers, and this is coupled with high evasion, something which is crucial, as even though ninjas can deal damage, they aren't very good at taking it. Luckily, ninjas rarely have to worry about that thanks in part to throw, but also the learnable innate support ability, Dual Wield. Dual Wield allows ninjas to equip two one-handed weapons at the same time, which allows them to attack twice with each melee strike, therefore multiplying their damage output considerably. In addition, ninjas have a pair of reaction abilities that take their strengths and turn them up even further. Vanish applies the invisible status when attacked by physical attacks, allowing them to strike their foes clandestinely with ease, while Reflexes doubles their physical and magical evasion rates. Due to this, Ninja is an excellent primary job choice that has synergy with a number of secondary job commands too, such as Jump or a Knight's Rend, which can quickly be used to incapacitate foes. Arithmetician is a magic-focused job that uses maths to analyse the battlefield for potentially devastating results, and thus it makes sense that becoming one requires some investment. This means that White Mage and Black Mage need to be leveled up in addition to Mystic and Time Mage. Using the Arithmetic's job command, Arithmeticians are able to target multiple enemies at once with high-level magic, no matter the distance and at no charge time cost. As this is the strength though, it makes sense that Arithmeticians do not fare well when attacked in direct physical confrontations, and like other magical jobs can only equip light armor for defense. This is then underlined by their extremely low physical stats and speed, but the curious aspect is that even their magic stats are lackluster when compared to their magical siblings, with the only standout being that they have a decent MP growth rate. However, when taking into account the Arithmetic's job command, none of this really matters. Using things such as relative terrain height, experience, level multiples, and prime numbers to determine which units are affected by its magic, Arithmeticians are able to attack from anywhere on the battlefield instantly, and with a wide array of spells from across the spectrum of magical jobs. But while Arithmetics are incredibly powerful, they come at the expense of either the risk of friendly fire or hitting enemies with buffs and accidentally healing them. Luckily, this downside can be mitigated with some careful planning and clever strategy. Arithmetics can be pushed even further when used as a secondary job command on a job like Black Mage, as it has better magic stats, and it can then be given the added benefit of instantly casting its strongest spells. The job also comes with incredibly useful learnable abilities that aid in grinding, such as the support ability EXP boost, and the movement abilities Accrue EXP and Accrue JP, which allow a unit to gain EXP and JP by simply moving around the battlefield. Dancer is a physical job capable of attacking all units, while applying a variety of debuffs to their opponents through the rhythmic movements of their bodies. But the requirements are unique, in that alongside leveling up Geomancer and Dragoon, a unit also has to be female. Through the use of the dance command, dancers are able to use a myriad of mysterious dances in order to wreak havoc on all their foes at once. They can use knives and claws as weapons, and melee fighting is not necessarily out of the question for dancers, but they can only use light armor, so it's not really the preference. Dancer stats are also decent, with average physical and magical attack job multipliers, but they have lackluster growth rates and some of the worst HP multipliers in the game, meaning that if they do use their dance abilities, they should probably stay out of harm's way. Dance abilities rely on probability to be successful, but they also target all enemies at once, which gives them a huge advantage. Witch Hunt can reduce the entire enemy party's available MP, while Forbidden Dance can inflict a plethora of negative status effects. Last Waltz has the potential to be incredible too, able to reduce the charge time of all the targets to 0, potentially resetting the flow of combat altogether. However, all of these abilities have a caveat. Once a dance is selected, the ability continues to trigger over and over again until a new ability is selected or a new course of action is chosen. This means that dancers are a bit of a set and forget job, something that often results in them being more or less removed from the battle and relegated to a single ability. And when coupled with the accuracy of dances being unreliable, it means dance is probably best used as a secondary job command. Bard is very similar to Dancer, using the power of singing and music to support allies, and it requires Summoner and Orator to be leveled, while also being exclusive to male units. They can equip musical instruments as their weapons and hats and clothes for defense. Similar to Dancer, Bards have decent magical attack and speed, but this is only when taking into account job multiples, as growth rates are not good. In terms of function, once a Bard song is selected, the Bard will continue to sing that song until the task of doing something else is given to it, and these songs can be helpful in multiple ways. Seraph's Song, for example, can restore a party's MP, while Rousing Melody can raise speed stats. But the accuracy is also poor, so even though the benefits can be incredible, such as buffing party members with re-raise, regen, protect, shell and haste through Nameless Song, if missed, the turn is wasted. As such, Bard Song, like Dance, is better off used as a secondary job command. Mime stands as one of the most difficult jobs to unlock in Final Fantasy Tactics, introduced as a late game job intended for only the most skilled tacticians. As such, not only do Squire and Chemist have to be at a very high level, but significant progression also has to have been made with Geomancer, Dragoon, Orator and Summoner. Mimes learn no specific abilities, and Mimic cannot be equipped as a secondary command on other jobs. Getting the most out of a Mime is therefore a difficult task given the specific mechanics of the job command, as it copies the action of an ally that acted before it, while also using both the current position and direction of the Mime. Mimes can also be quite fragile, as they are unable to equip weapons or armor, relying on quick and decent movement and their Mimic command to stay alive. That being said, Mimes, paradoxically, have some of the best stats and growth rates in the game, making them a great job to level up as. Due to the nature of the job, Mimes are able to use abilities from the generic pool of jobs, but they cannot mimic special abilities from unique jobs. In addition, Mimes do not inherit the stats of the unit being mimicked, instead using their own, meaning that the Mime itself needs to be rather strong to get the most out of whatever it copies. But luckily, abilities that use consumables do not get used when mimicked. When the Mime can shine the brightest is when copying abilities used by arithmetics, dancers or bards. In these instances, Mimes are able to keep out of combat and double up on whichever spells or abilities are being used, targeting many units at once and not needing to worry about their positioning. That being said, with the right positioning, Mimes can be devastating. There's just a small risk of friendly fire depending on which way they're facing. That brings us on to the special jobs, and first up we're going to tackle the Divine Knight, which is the default job for the Templar Meliadoul Tengille. Her job command is Unyielding Blade, which is able to break a target's equipped weapons and armour, crushing them with powerful, focused strikes. Able to equip a variety of weapons such as swords, knight swords, crossbows and polearms, as a Divine Knight, Meliadoul is a competent melee unit, and her stats are similar to the Knight job, in terms of favouring physical stats by way of both growth rates and job multipliers, while also suffering from average speed. When facing off with an enemy, the Divine Knight's crush abilities make sure that no piece of equipment is off limits for breaking, a feat made even more devastating by all these abilities being able to strike from a limited distance. However, there is a caveat. In order to use Unyielding Blade, the Divine Knight has to have a sword or knight sword equipped. Outside of Unyielding Blade, Divine Knight's other abilities are the same as Squire's, meaning that all of the Divine Knight's uniqueness lays in its offensive options. Dragonkin is the default job of Reis Duelar, and unlocking it requires helping Reis regain her human form by way of completing her side quest. Using the Dragon command, Dragonkins are able to call upon the blood of the dragons that runs through their veins, letting them deliver powerful breath attacks while also bestowing buffs and having the innate ability to commune with and tame monsters. Dragonkin have limited equipment options despite having access to dual wield, being restricted to utilising bags as weapons, making barehanded a more logical approach, and this quirk then repeats with equipment, as Dragonkins can only equip ribbons. Despite this, Dragonkins have excellent stats across the board and excel in both stat growth and job multipliers, meaning Reis can often punch above her weight, something that really comes into focus when she uses that Dragon command. Through the use of abilities such as Fire, Ice, Thunder and Holy Breath, Dragonkin are able to hit their enemies with hard elemental damage, and this can be boosted even further by using the Black Mage's Arcane Strength support ability. But attacking isn't the Dragonkin's only skill, as its Dragon's Gift, Might and Speed abilities are capable of providing very potent support to allies in need, recovering their HP, increasing their stats, and giving them instant turns, respectively. Dragonkin therefore has best synergy when paired up with the boosting abilities of magical jobs like the Black Mage, or even secondary job commands like Geomancer, which can make good use of its stats and offer it even more versatility. But perhaps one of the best combinations is with Arithmeticians. The default job of Agrias Oaks is the Holy Knight, but this job is also aligned with Deleter from Chapter 2 onwards and Wiegraf, albeit with his variant being known as the White Knight. As experts in swords, much like the Divine Knight, Agrias needs to have a sword equipped to make use of the Holy Knight job command. And as a cousin of the Knight job, Divine Knight has similar stat growth and job multipliers, but the deviation being that Holy Knight offers better evasion. Its job command is also very powerful, granting access to abilities like Judgment Blade, which has a chance of inflicting stop on a target, and Harrow Bolt, which can render spellcasters useless by way of silence. As such, Holy Knights have no problem tearing through an enemy's ranks and making short work of threats. They also have good synergy when pairing with the likes of support-focused magic jobs like White Mage and Time Mage, and any abilities that further increase its physical power. Machinist is the default job of Mustadio Bunansa, who focuses entirely on ranged fighting. As such, Machinists can only use guns, and by the same token, can only equip lighter armour. Though the Machinist's stat growth is average, the job multipliers are low, meaning they are better off dishing out than they're receiving, but even the results aren't always that great. This is fortunately made up by the job's uniqueness though, as the Snipe command has a few tricks up its sleeve. Leg Shot, for example, targets an opponent's legs and stops them from moving, whereas Arm Shot targets their arms and stops them from using weapons or spellcasting. Seal Evil is then able to petrify undead enemies, a very niche but handy ability. In all cases, Snipe's abilities use the Machinist's speed stat to help calculate success, so boosting that speed stat can really improve the effectiveness of Mustadio. Netherseer is the default job of Marach Galthena, and through the use of its Nether Mantra job command, it uses the Dark Arts to attack its opponents using their lack of faith as a source of power. Limited to weapons like rods and poles, the Netherseer is not a job intended to lead the charge, something reflected in its stats, as Netherseer is average across the board, favouring MP and magic attack. Due to its inverse relationship with Faith, Nether Mantra functions differently from other magical job commands, even if it shares the same charge mechanic. Abilities such as Nether Assurer and Howl's Wrath are able to hit enemies with elemental multi-hit magical assaults, while Corporeal Void engulfs its target area in debilitating status effects. But to ensure maximum success, keeping the faith of the Netherseer low is paramount, so any gear abilities such as the Orator's Enlighten are a must for supporting that objective. Outside of this, it's wise to focus on increasing the Netherseer's magic attack, as this increases the potency of its abilities the best and gives it the highest chance of success. Rapha Galthena uses Skyseer as her default job, utilising its Sky Mantra command and drawing its power not from faith or a lack of it, but from somewhere else entirely. Using staves and poles, Skyseer is a magical job that is best utilised when focused on casting, and its stat growth and job multipliers are average across the board, but Skyseer does have an advantage over the Netherseer, as it has higher speed. Sky Mantra features a spectrum of elemental skills like Heaven's Wrath and Maelstrom, and Celestial Void, which has the chance to engulf enemies in a myriad of negative status effects. This makes it very similar to the Netherseer, except without the requirements around Faith. And due to the Sky Mantra abilities ignoring Faith altogether, it's best enhanced through abilities that increase magic attack, such as the Black Mage's Arcane Strength. To play in with Cloud Strife's role as a guest character, the developers created the unique Soldier job. In reference to Final Fantasy VII's Limit Break abilities, Soldier's Limit Job command sees Cloud able to utilise some of his signature attacks to deal potentially huge amounts of damage, with its damage-dealing potential drawing upon Cloud's magic attack, a clear nod to the backstory involving Materia and Mako. A swordsman at heart, Cloud as a soldier only uses swords to attack his opponents, and favours hats, clothes, and interestingly enough, ribbons, a piece of armour usually only wearable by female units. The soldier's job stats are a little underwhelming, being quite average across the board in terms of multipliers, but this is made up for by way of decent physical attack growth rates and a high evasion stat. It means that although Cloud has access to some of the most powerful magical attacks in the game through Limit, such as Omni Slash and Cherry Blossom, actually getting the most out of them takes some setup, a fact made all the more true when taking into account that these same abilities have a long charge time and don't track their target. Maximising Cloud therefore takes time and effort, as there needs to be a balance between equipment, progression, and proper setup play in the battles themselves. There are many ways around this, however, such as using abilities like the Time Mage's Swiftness, which helps with Limit's charging times. Sedolphus Orlando, also known as the Thunder God, is a legend within the lore of Final Fantasy Tactics, and has since become one in the fanbase too. And one of the primary reasons behind this is his Sword Saint job. And this is because it's able to fuse the abilities of Divine Knight and Holy Knight into one, having access to a truly staggering toolkit capable of dismantling foes with ease and steamrolling even the toughest encounters. This is then backed up by the Sword Saint having stellar stats, featuring above average growth rates nearly across the board and impressive job multipliers. The only caveat is that though Sword Saints can equip swords of all kinds, including ninja blades and katanas, its sword play command requires either a sword or knight sword to be equipped. As all Sword Saint abilities are not only powerful, but have no charge time or MP requirement, sword play is easily one of the most useful job commands in the game, and due to its utility, Sid is a near must for every party, as he can easily hold his own with little effort. And this notion becomes even more pronounced when equipped with powerful knight swords which can bestow additional benefits. A clear primary job for Sid, the best synergy for Sword Saint comes with jobs that boost his already impressive physical attack, such as the Geomancer's attack boost, or with secondary job commands that give him the ability to buff himself even further, such as Time Mage. That then brings us on to our final job, Templar, which is the default job of Beowulf Cadmus, unlocked by completing his side quest. Like the other unique knight jobs, the Templar must equip a sword to use its abilities, but Beowulf can also equip knight swords and knives. Templars enjoy not only great all-round stat rates, but also strong job multipliers, which, when paired with its varied spell-based abilities, give the job a ton of versatility and make for a competent unit for any party. Using Spellblade, Templars are able to use abilities such as Blind, Faith, Zombie and Chicken to inflict the corresponding statuses, and at a modest range, meaning few are ever safe from its reach. In addition, the Drain ability not only helps to recover HP, but is also able to inflict great damage to all the Lucavi enemies. While the success rate of Templar abilities is dependent partially on its magic stat, boosting that with the Black Mage's Arcane Strength can work really well, and as such, any magical secondary job command also pairs well with the Templar strengths, making it an incredibly useful unit in the end game. But with that, thank you so much for watching our Final Fantasy Tactics job guide. Hopefully you found it useful. But we'd also love to hear about your favourite jobs and how you've made them overpowered, so let us know in the comments below. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, Christopher Gardner, Clever Chavez, Eagerspirit Required on YouTube, Frederick Forrest, Gregory and Stephen, who are super special Onion Eye supporters, and of course a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.